All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. Sorry for a slight delay, but I think we are live. What would be really helpful is if people could tell me if they can see me and if they can hear me. Um, so yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you today. And this live stream, the goal of this live stream is to introduce you to new integration between Botsociety and Rasa. And I'm really excited about this new integration because I will tell you all the details about it during the stream today. But I believe that it's going to make it a lot easier for developers to not only develop bots and assistants using Browserstack, but also to design them. And this new integration, in my opinion, bridges the gap between people who can design bots and who can develop them. So yeah, okay, I can see Alex's comment that you can see me and you can hear me, so okay, let's get started. So I haven't introduced myself, my name is Justina and I work at Rasa as a developer advocate. So I focus on developers who build cool things with Rasa, and my goal is to make it as easy as possible to get started and build something exciting. So today I will be doing the stream, and behind me over here you can see here Sarah, our mascot. So we are going to be just us today, and we are going to talk about this new integration, and also I'm going to show you an actual example of how you can use this new integration to build great assistants. Awesome. So before I actually jump into the configuration and integration directly and show you an actual example of how to use it, I think I will give you a very quick overview of both tools and why you would consider using them for your projects. So let me just quickly switch. All right. So I will start with Botsociety, and I'm not sure if I've seen quite a few our community members using this tool before, but it's a platform where developers can design their assistant, and it's really an important step in development of your assistant because it's important to ensure that the users will have the best experience when using your bot. So not only the development is important, but also all the UX and design details of the assistant are very important to be taken into account. And what you can do on Botsociety is that you can design the conversation and see how the conversation on your assistant is actually going to look like. So for example, if you want to build an assistant for Facebook Messenger or Slack or Google Assistant or a bunch of other platforms, Botsociety allows you to actually design the conversation and design your assistant and see how this conversation would look like if your users were already using the assistant. And it's not only that, you can also use lots of other great features of Botsociety. So for example, you can collaborate with your team members when designing the bot and of course working on the projects together, and also you can use this platform for user testing. So when you design your bot and you would ideally want to get some feedback from actual users of how they feel about the assistant and about the conversation flows, you can actually give the design to the users and gather some feedback and see how it performs, and then make changes and improve your assistant, and at the same time all the experience that your users would have when using the assistant with you. So this is for the design part, and another important thing is that you can use Botsociety. You can sign up and use this for free and try it out for free. yeah, it's really useful tool for designing the conversations and designing your assistant in the first place. And then the next stage obviously is actually developing your assistant. So when you have a design, when you have the idea of what you want your users to see when they use your assistant, then you can actually go and develop your assistant. So this is where Browserstack comes in play, and Browserstack, for those who are maybe new to both of those tools, is an open source framework for conversational AI. So you can use this framework to build AI assistants, and it's open source, and it allows you to build assistants that can perfectly run in production. It's open source, so anyone can use it, and it's completely free. With that, you can also leverage a lot of other advantages of using open source framework. So you can decide where you want to run the assistant, on your local machine or on the cloud. You can also tune the models and just change the entire framework to best suit your needs. And also the big advantage is that Browserstack runs on is based on machine learning. So instead of writing rules and instead of hoping that the users of your assistant will follow those rules, you actually gather some conversational data and use that to train machine learning models that not only understand the user inputs, but also are able to predict how an assistant should respond at specific state of the conversation. And it just helps creating way more natural conversations between the users and the assistants. So this is a super quick introduction to both tools, because I think it's important for us to be on the same page. One thing that I haven't mentioned for this stream that is important is that if you have questions throughout the stream, you can write them in chats section, so I will be happy to answer them either on the go or at the end of the stream. I just really want to make this stream as interactive as possible so that I could give you the most advantage of learning about these tools and about the entire integration. Getting back to the integration, so Rasa is for development of the assistants, and Botsociety is for designing the conversation flow and the actual assistant and being able to test it with actual users. So the integration between the two is a really exciting feature. I think I have it somewhere here. So yeah. So integration between between Rasa, there is another integration with Dialogflow as well. So it allows you to just connect those two steps, and even allows just if you want to one person, one developer to be able to not only develop an assistant but also to design it. And it also, I will show you, helps a lot with getting started with developing assistants with Rasa, because just by speaking to lots of developers, I've noticed that sometimes it's quite tricky to get started with development for Rasa assistants, because you have to gather some conversational data. And this integration is really great because you not only design your assistant, but also you can reuse all the conversations that you used for design of your assistant, and then use them directly to actually train the very first version of your assistant. So it just makes it a lot easier to go from design stage to an actual development stage, and it just like it's just way more seamless process. So now what I would like to do is just to actually give you a real example of how this integration work, and I will show you basically an example from scratch. And how I would do. So here I am on a Botsociety page, so this is the account that I'm using, and the design of your assistant would just start with something like new design. And what I wanted to show is that you can choose what platform you would like your assistant to design for. And again, it's really helpful because then you can actually see how the conversation between the bot and the users will look like. I will probably just stick with Facebook Messenger. You can obviously choose any other platform if you want to, and let's set the name to the bot. Or I can see the suggestion for Sarah, so I will use the same one. So for those who don't know, yeah, I mentioned that already. Sarah is our mascot, so let's create another Sarah bot here, and you can also set like a bot image, and I have Sarah image here, so let's just do that. Okay, so I basically will start designing, so I will just select this stage here. So now it's basically just setting up the layout, and you can see here that I already have a Facebook Messenger design here, so I can already see how the bot would look like for the actual users of this assistant. So I can see the name, I can see how the picture would look like, and in general how the application itself will look like. And now what I can do is I can actually start designing the conversation between a bot and the user, just to be able to see how it would look like in real life when the users will be using the assistant. So what I can do is I can define user inputs, real messages, what the users would say, and the responses of an assistant, what it would respond at specific stages of the conversation, and then actually see the entire conversation live. So I decided to show you a very quick and very simple example of airline booking assistant. So let's say Sarah is going to know how to book flights for the users. So I'm just going to quickly design a simple conversation between me, a user, and Sarah, and show you how this conversation will look like. So I will just start with my own input. So I will start the conversation with hello. And now I can provide the response of an assistant of the bot. So let's say Sarah will respond with hello, I am Sarah, I can help you book flights. And let's see something, how can I help? Something like that, something very simple. So, okay, so then I will just want to actually book a flight. I would like to book a flight, let's say. Great, and then let's say, so here I'm defining this kind of happy path conversation. So I will, let's say Sarah will then ask from where are you departing? Let's just not make typos. And I don't know, for example, I will say from Paris. And then obviously Sarah will need to know where I'm going to, so, and where are you going? And let's say I would like to go to, let's say San Francisco. To San Francisco. And another thing that would probably be useful to know for my bot is when I will be going. So I will say that Sarah then will ask, okay, when do you want to leave? And let's say I want to fly tomorrow. Something like that. And let's say I will include the last question when I would like to come back. When would you like to come back? Another possible conversation could be that a bot would first ask if a return is needed in general, but just to make this example simpler and quicker, I will just go straight to in an example where a bot would ask the return question, and I will say, for example, next Monday. That's great. And then let's say Sarah will actually look for the flight and it will return some kind of result. So let's say Sarah will say, got it. And then it will actually find the suggestion. So let's say here is what I found. Actually, I think I will provide probably an actual response, and what is really cool on Botsociety that you can actually not only use text responses, but you can actually include visuals, so it really also makes a lot of sense to do that, especially when you want to test the design. Yeah, it just really nice to see how everything would look like in real life. So I will just include a picture of San Francisco, and let's say I don't know, call it ticket Paris SF, something like that. Something, yeah, super simple. Just an example. So let's say this is going to be the suggestion that Sarah will give to the user, and I will say looks great, thanks, something like that. So it's just a very, very simple example of a conversation. Obviously, a designer would have to spend a little bit more time designing and making sure that the flow looks good. But as you can see, so here I have just a very simple conversation between a user, me, and Sarah, and I can already see how that would look like on the Facebook Messenger, on the platform where I would probably deploy this assistant, and it just makes a way better understanding of how the entire experience is going to look like. So once you do that, you can obviously play around more with design things and the design side of the Botsociety, because you can share designs, as I mentioned, and collaborate with your team on design, and you can use it for user testing and lots of other things. But now I actually would like to show you the actual integration. So what happens once you actually have a design and you are happy with it, and how to move on to the next step. So to use the integration between Botsociety and Rasa, you then have to click this build button here. So I will do that. And once you click on it, it's going to direct you to a new page where you can actually do initial data labeling. So this is, I really hope that this term is familiar for Rasa users already, because again, Rasa is using machine learning, so to train an LU model, and then later on Rasa core model, you obviously need some training data. And this training data consists of intents and entities that should be extracted from user inputs, and then you should use some stories to train Rasa core model. And what is really great here is that you can actually use this conversation that we used in a design stage, this happy path conversation, and actually label it, and then later on immediately use it in a development stage of the Browserstack. Browserstack model. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to do to label all these user inputs. So you can see, I can see the message, and then I have intent bar here, and I can actually assign intent to each of these messages. And by doing that, I will actually start creating some training data for my assistant, which is really great. So I obviously don't want to keep default intent 0 for all these inputs, so I'm going to just quickly go through each of these messages and assign intents, and I will also label entities later as well. So intent, just to remind everyone, is the label that describes the overall intention of user input or the response of an assistant in this case as well. So for example, hello, it's probably the intent greet would represent this input the best. So I will assign intent greet here, and I will just click add. So you can see now hello message has intent greet. So here Sarah responded with hello, I'm Sarah, I can help you book flights, and how I can help. So I will just assign the same greet intent here, because it's just Sarah is saying kind of hello back to me and offering help. And then I said that I would like to book a flight, so this input should definitely have different intent because it's not greet intent. So this input should probably have intent something like book flight. And then Sarah asked where I'm departing from, so I will assign intent, let's call it departure. Maybe departure location, because we also have dates, because yeah, it's important to keep in mind what kind of intents you assign to user inputs as well, just to make it easy to debug later on and not to get lost between the intents we assign. So then I said that I'm going to be leaving from Paris, and here I'm just simply providing some information where I'm leaving from, and I will assign this an intent called inform. And then Sarah asked where I'm going, so I will create a new intent here, which I will call destination. Location. And again, I provided information where I'm going to, so I will just simply reuse the same intent inform. And then Sarah asked, when do I want to leave? So I will create a new intent, which will be departure date, let's say. Departure date. So I provided, again, information when I'm going, so I will assign the same inform intent here. And then Sarah asked when would I like to come back, so I will create a new intent, and I will create I will call it return date, let's call it that way. And then I again provided information that I'm going to come back next Monday, so it's going to have the same intent inform. And then Sarah said got it. So this could be a new intent, some kind of, let's say, I don't know, conform, saying that everything's great and it understood what I'm looking for, and then it provided an actual suggestion. So let's call this intent flights. No, I wouldn't call it flight search. Let's call it search result, just to be in line with the actual intention of this input. And then I was super happy with the suggestion, so I said looks great, thanks. So I will just create the last new intent, which I will call let's say thanks. So as you can see, it's also a really nice UI where you can do data annotation. And again, for Rasa users, you're probably already familiar with other ways to annotate data. So you can use YAML files, JSON files. There are also some other UIs that were developed by Rasa contributors. But this is also a really nice way to just move directly from design to labeling data in a simple and nice UI. I will quickly cover the next step, but before I do that, I will also want to mention that you can also label not only intents, but obviously you can also label entities as well. So entity is an important piece of information that an assistant should extract and use to make correct responses and accurate responses to the user. So for example, a good example of entity can be location, name, or date, so just like what I just used in this example. So I have quite a few entities. So for example, from Paris, and this response from me obviously has an entity, which is a location where I'm going from, where I'm going to. No, from. Paris, it's a really important piece of information for an assistant to extract and use when looking for the flight suggestions. So I can simply annotate this entity by highlighting it, and then I can create the name for this entity. So I will call it, let's say, location. And then I can also define what kind of entity that is. And this feature here is probably more applicable for Dialogflow users, but Rasa users also can define what type of this entity is. So I will just create a new custom type, which I will call location as well. And you can see the name is location, value is Paris. So this is how entity annotation works. The same thing is with, for example, San Francisco, which is another entity. So I can simply just highlight it, and again, I will call it location as well. And then I can simply reuse the type as well. And the same for dates. Again, if you are already using Rasa and tried it out on different use cases, so you probably know that you can extract dates using duckling, so then you don't really need to annotate dates if you do that. If you want to use a different ways of extracting these details, then you would probably create a new entity for dates and annotate the same way as I just showed you. So yeah, this is basically what you do. So you can annotate intents and entities, and this is a really nice starting data set that a developer can go ahead and use to develop a bot. So now how this part happens. So you probably can see already that we have some things here on the side. So Rasa provides a feature, the Botsociety provides a feature to download data files in a Rasa format already, and all you have to do is just basically click on download Rasa files here. And what it will do, it should download us lots of different and really useful files. And I have this zip file here, so let's see what we have. Okay. So it's a zip file which I will extract quickly here just to show you what's inside, and I think I will just rename it just to have a little bit more user-friendly name for this. So let's just call it Rasa Bot. Great. So now what I would like to show you is what you actually get, and Rasa users probably already can see that these files probably look familiar, and they should, because in general what you get here is an actual starting point for your Rasa assistant. So let's see what we have inside. Oh no, I have a bunch of old files. No, I don't want to recover those. Okay, finally. Okay, so this is the NLU file, and what we have here is all of the intents that I defined from the user side, and as you can see, they are all nicely written with intent names and with the examples of like user inputs that I provided while designing the assistant, and all the entities, they are also provided here, so you can see all the user inputs that I designed and defined here end up in a really nice Rasa-friendly format that, again, a developer can just go ahead and use immediately. And it doesn't end only with NLU data. You can also get NLU configuration file as well. And this by default would provide the spacey pipeline to train the model. And this is because, again, it's a very early stage of the development of the assistant, and since it will include probably just a very few training examples, it would be better to probably start with spacey based pipeline for building your assistant. Yeah, it doesn't. And even there, what is even better is that you actually get started with some training stories. I'm pretty sure we should have at least this one for sure that we designed. So all this conversation that I just designed here ends up in a really nice Rasa format that you can, again, just immediately use to train your bot. One thing that I do want to mention here is that you probably see that the responses of an assistant, they have some user message that is attached to it. So this is just to make sure that all the intents and the responses of your assistant have a unique response name. So it's just because on Botsociety, an assistant has to know like that this greet input from user input is different from the response of an assistant. Yeah, and so you get the story, at least one story that you can use. We have some flat stories as well, which also includes not only the original story that I designed while wrote when designing the bot, but also it has some generated stories. So you have even stronger start for development of your assistant. So you need less stories to write by hand or to write when using interactive learning. And the last component that is provided here is domain. So you already get it as well predefined, which is really nice. So you get all the intents that we defined in a design of an assistant. Also entities, action names, you don't really have to write them by hand yourself. And also slots if you want to set any slots, and obviously the template. So all the most important details of the domain that in other situation a developer would probably have to write down by hand, you get it automatically by using the integration between Botsociety and Rasa. And it just makes it a lot easier to, again, as I said, move from design part to actual development part. So now I'm actually going to use all these files, and I will show you how easy it is to actually use them all and build a very simple bot. So I will start with NLU model. So I have all these files, which is all great. So I will need NLU training data and NLU configuration file to train the very simple NLU model. One thing that I just would like to mention quickly is that you might need to provide or might want, which you obviously can, to provide more possible ways of how users would say specific things. And you would have to do that because you just from machine learning point of view, you have to provide more than one possible example of for each intent, so that the model would be trained, because otherwise you will get the error that the split between the examples that were provided for each intent is simply not possible because you only have one of them. So I will just quickly write at least one additional example for each of these intents. So I have intent book flight, so I will provide one additional example. So let's say, very simple, book me a flight. And then I have another intent greet, so I will just provide another possible way to say hello, which is hey. In form, we have quite a few examples here, and then I will provide another possible way to say thank you, which will be just like that, thank you. So I will save it, and that's it. I'm actually now going to try and train my model. So let's see. So I'm still in my downloads, and I called it SarahBot. So what I will do is I will just simply use all these files and just train the Rasa NLU model, which will be able to understand user inputs from those very few examples that I defined, I had in the files that I downloaded. So let's just do that. So Python n Rasa NLU. I will call train function, which will be responsible for training the model. And I will now start providing the files that are necessary to train the model. So the first one is configuration file. So I have NLU config file, which has pipeline configuration. Then I do have to provide training data, which is nlu.md. In this example, I will also define the location where I would like my model to be saved, which I will just set to models, and I will also set a fixed model name, which I will call, I will just call it an NLU model. And also I can define things like project, where I would like to keep these models after they are trained, so I will call it current, and I would like to see the output of the training, so I will set it to verbose. Just quickly checking, but probably let's just go with it and see if it's going to work. Oh, yeah. Great, so it should be Python, not Python. Like that. Hopefully that will work. Yeah, so for those who are new to Rasa, what I'm doing here is I'm using the NLU training examples that I defined while creating the design of the bot and the model configuration file, and using both of them to actually train the NLU model, which will be able to take user input in a simple human language and extract details, what the input is about in a really nice and structured format. So what is the intent of user input, and are there any entities in a user input? So as you can see, the model was trained, again, super small model with a really small amount of training data, and you can see that I already have models directory where my NLU model is saved, and all these files just simply correspond to the trained NLU model, and that's awesome. I didn't really have to write much of training examples, and I already have an NLU model. So now, without any further ado, I actually would like to show you how you can now move on and start actually training your assistant, not only just an NLU model. My suggestion here would be instead of training Rasa core model, to actually go with interactive learning here. It's just because you already have an NLU model, which is simple, but you can start using it. You have some training stories that you can use, and by using interactive learning, you can improve the performance of your assistant even more and actually generate even more training data, which then you can use in the later stages of your the design of your assistant. So it just falls in the development of your assistant way more nicely than just training a separate Rasa core model. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply now train Rasa core model in an interactive learning session, and I will show you how to do that as well. So let's do that. So I will start with Python, and now I'm going to use Rasa core. So I will train the model using Rasa core, and since I said that I would like to use interactive learning session, so I will just provide interactive parameter, and now I would have to define where I will want the model to be saved after the model is trained. So I will set it to models, so the same directory as here, and I will just say that it should be saved in a dialog directory over there. And now what is left is just to simply provide some files that I needed to train the Rasa core model. So first one is domain file, which defines the universe of the assistant. So it is already here, so I can just simply reuse it. Also, training stories. So I can use either stories where I have this one happy past story, or I can use flat stories. Maybe I will try with flat stories because it has some more generated stories, and I will just see if that works well. And obviously I will want to use NLU model as the interpreter for incoming user inputs. So let's just set where the NLU model is, which is in the models directory, current project, and it was called NLU model, if I don't remember correctly, NLU model. And I think that should be enough to train a dialog manager model in an interactive learning session. So let's just give it a go and see how that works. Interesting. Well, you can see the actual development of Rasa assistants here. So I'm not sure exactly what is happening. What I will just do quickly, I will try to update my Rasa core installation. That it's not something that is expected. Let's see if that fixes the issue. Well, sometimes it happens. Let's see. And now I will just quickly try to retrain. So that error is not related to Rasa at all. And I'm not really sure why it is unhappy still. Which is something with okay, so we have some technical issues, which I think is going to prevent me to show you how to run Browserstack in an interactive learning session. Again, I will probably have to spend a bit more time figuring out why it happened. But the main idea is, again, that you actually can use both of these files, not both of these files, but all of these files to actually train the model immediately. Again, you can see the errors I'm getting, and they are not related to the integration whatsoever, but I'm not exactly sure why it is not here. What I can try, but I think it just will take a bit more time. In the meantime, while I'm trying to fix this, and I will just quickly check the questions you guys have, and if I can answer any of the questions, so I can see you guys happy with the integration. Yeah, so it's as I said, it's as you could probably see, it just really makes it a lot easier to train your assistant and move directly from designing the bot to labeling the data, getting started data that you can then use and actually train the model. Okay, I will do this one more time, and if that doesn't work, then it's just something I will have to look into after the stream in more detail. Yeah, okay. I will not spend more time trying to fix this, unfortunately. I cannot really show the model of Rasa core, so it's the next stage of the development of your assistant. So just give it a go yourself, and let me know if that works for you. I'm pretty sure it should work. So yeah, this is the main thing that I wanted to show you, except for this little technical issue. But the main idea is that you can use Botsociety to, first of all, design your assistant and design seeing how the conversation between the user and your assistant would look on the actual device, just like here. And another thing that I actually haven't mentioned is that you can also cover different paths of the conversation just by using some logic that Botsociety provides you. So for example, adding different options what a user could ask. So maybe in a different situation, a user might ask how to find the luggage that was lost or something like that. So you can definitely add these type of designs here as well. And then once you are happy with the design, then you can actually go ahead and use all these details to start labeling the data. Get at least the happy path working for you, or even have even more details. And then once you have training data that is ready, you can just simply download the files and use them to train the models immediately, or you can add more training examples and use that to improve your assistant. So in my opinion, from the developer's perspective, it's a really nice feature to have, and it just makes the development and the design of your assistant a lot easier. And as I said, I think it really bridges the gap between the designers who design the flow and the user experience when using your applications and actual developers. And it just makes the process a lot easier, and I would say quicker as well, because you don't really need to define all these files then by hand. So yeah, that's these are the main things I wanted to show you today. And before I leave you with an option to give it a try and just try out this feature, I just wanted to mention a few additional things. Is that this feature is still in an early stage, and I'm pretty sure we will see more improvements on this in the future, and I would be excited to see even more integrations between tools like Botsociety and Rasa, because they are really useful, as you can see. But we are just really excited to give this feature to our developers as soon as possible. So yeah, please give it a go, see how it works, share your experiences on either Rasa forum, or you can just send me an email and tell me if that works for you, if you find it useful or not. And I would just really appreciate your feedback and what you think, if it helps to develop assistants, and what else you would like to see when it comes to these kind of integrations. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm really happy that you joined this stream, and this entire example that I showed you today will stay on YouTube. So if you will want to rewatch something, you will be able to see that as well. In the future, it's going to be on Rasa YouTube channel. So yeah. Awesome. I will just quickly check the questions if I have anything. Yeah, so I can see one question about multiple training sets to one example. So if I understand, this is for a few possible ways to respond, for example, a few different utterances that a assistant could have, if I understand correctly. So at least for now, you have to define an actual response, and it is going to be one, because again, right now you can actually define more like a happy path of how the conversation would go. My suggestion for now would be just to simply edit the files. So it's a lot easier to just simply open up that domain file and add more templates that you can use, just simply provide more possible ways how an assistant would respond. The same with stories. So again, it's really great that you not only get the actual story, which just corresponds 100% to this design of the conversation, but also you get some generated stories which are just they cover way more possible turns in the conversation, and they should help you as well to get started. But you can definitely add more stories and more conversations here as well in the later stages of the development. And what would really help, again, it's unfortunate that I wasn't able to show you that today, is actually using interactive learning, where you can chat to your bot, talk to it, and then just simply reuse those conversations again in a Rasa format already, and just simply add them to the training examples, and improve your bot basically as you talk to it. But I encourage you to give it a go, and I'm pretty sure it should really work for you. And as I said, just share your feedback with us, because our goal is just to make it as easy as possible for everyone to build great assistants with Rasa and Botsociety. So yeah, that's all from my end, and I'm really happy that you joined the stream. If you have, oh, I can see one more question is coming, but just to remind everyone that if you have more questions, just you can post them, for example, on the Rasa forum, because this is where you can find all the information and get answers to your questions. So I am on the Rasa forum, so I will see your questions, and I'm really happy to answer. So just simply post your questions here, and I will answer. And I'm still waiting for a question from Jitesh, if I'm pronouncing this correctly, which is probably going to be one of the last ones I will answer. Okay, but I'm not really getting the question, so then yeah, just make sure to post it on Rasa forum, and I will definitely answer that. So yeah, again, just give it a go. Try out this feature. You can, as I said, you can try it out for free. You can sign up and do all this work that I showed you today free of charge on Botsociety, and obviously Browserstack is open source, so you can do that for free as well. So give it a try, share your feedback, and I will hope to see you in the next stream in the future. So thank you very much, guys, and yeah, I'll see you the next time. Okay, bye-bye. Thanks for joining.